opening statement about the ATF, so I'm not going to repeat that. But on March the 9th, 2011, 1 month after your department's first denial of allegations that I have described, your Deputy Attorney General issued a directive stating this, and I'd like to have you listen to this quote, and then I've got questions around this quote, but there's something ironic about it. Quote, "We should not design or conduct undercover operations which include guns crossing the border. If we have knowledge that guns are about to cross the border, we must take immediate actions to stop the firearms from crossing the border, even if that prematurely terminates or otherwise jeopardizes an investigation," end of quote. So I have 3 short questions here. I'm going to state them all at once because they kind of go together. If the ATF, as the agency keeps telling us, did not knowingly allow guns into the hands of traffickers, then why was that directive even necessary? Why issue a memo telling people to stop doing something unless you think maybe they have been doing it? Doesn't that memo show that there was enough substance to what the whistleblower allegations were to me and even on television that the policy needed to be clarified?
Okay. Well, the memo was issued because the allegations had been raised, and I take those allegations seriously. It's why I sent the material to the Inspector General for an inspection. The possibility that that happened was sufficient, I thought, to have clarification sent to the field that we should never allow guns in an uncontrolled fashion to cross the border or actually to leave any investigation in an uncontrolled way. And that was the purpose of the memo. I frankly don't know. That's what the investigation, I think, will tell us. As I said, it's something that we take very seriously, and I think the proof of that is the fact that I've issued that memo, or the Deputy Attorney General issued that memo, and in addition to that, we've referred the matter to the Inspector General for inspection.
Well, do you believe that that memo is consistent with all the previous Justice Department policies, or does it represent a change in policy?
No, I don't think it represents a change in policy, but I certainly wanted to make sure that people in the field understood that that is, in fact, the policy, and to the extent that there was any confusion, I wanted to make sure that there was none, that that is, in fact, the policy of the Department of Justice. It is the policy that I expect to be enforced.
One more series of questions on this point, and then I'll go on. Does this policy only affect guns that law enforcement actually knows will go to Mexico? What about guns that are likely to go to bandits operating near the border, like those captured in Agent Terry's murder scene? What about guns that are likely to go to other criminals operating in border towns on this side of the border? Should agents let those guns go even if they have a chance to intercept them earlier?
No, that's a good question, Senator. And no, as I just indicated, my view is that, and the policy of the department is that guns should not be allowed to travel in that uncontrolled fashion, whether they're crossing the border or this happens within the confines of the United States. Uncontrolled distribution of guns connected to any kind of investigation that we are doing is something that is not consistent with the policies that I want followed in the Department of Justice.
I have a chart that's been prepared, and all the members have it. I assume that the Attorney General has it,
yep.
Right? Yeah. By the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, made in March of this year. It shows 1,318 weapons purchased by 15 suspects after they had been identified as targets of an investigation. All 15 targets were later indicted on related charges. However, the indictments came only after Agent Brian Terry was killed, and 2 guns from this case were found at the scene of the murder. I would ask unanimous consent to put that in the record.
Without objection.
The Justice Department cannot account for the current location of these 1,318 weapons. Is that right?
Senator, this is the first time I've seen this chart. I'm not in a position at this point to answer that question. We can certainly look at the chart and get back to you, but I don't know.
Okay. Let me ask you this question, though, even though you haven't seen the chart. If the agents had been allowed to intervene sooner, couldn't they have prevented these 1,318 guns from getting into the hands of criminals?
Well, again, as I said, it is the policy of the department not to allow guns to get into the hands of criminals, irrespective of the border. Now, if that means they got into the hands of criminals and were then arrested immediately thereafter, and there was a prevention of the use of the weapon by the criminal, that's one thing. If they were simply transmitted to a criminal and then they were lost track of, that is something that is not acceptable. I said I'd have to look at these numbers and the cases to be able to answer the question in a more intelligent fashion.
Questions, and I'd appreciate an answer in writing.
Sure.
Okay. Last week, it was reported that the Justice Department had notified a former department attorney, Thomas Tam, that it was no longer investigating him for leaking classified information to the New York Times. This announcement surprised many because Tam had publicly admitted he revealed classified information in a series of phone calls with reporters at the New York Times. This information ultimately was printed and revealed the existence of the terrorist surveillance program. Attorney General Holder, you have stated publicly that, quote, to the extent that we can find anybody who was involved in breaking law, they will be held accountable. Did you personally sign off on the decision not to prosecute Mr. Tam?
No, I did not. The TAM declination was done on the merits by career professionals within the Department of Justice. These kinds of declinations happen all the time without the involvement of me, the Deputy Attorney General, even the Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division.
Can I answer one last question? My time's up. Why would the department fail to prosecute someone who admits knowingly revealing classified information?
Well, there are a variety of reasons why a case might be declined. I can't get into the specifics of any particular case. That is generally not the policy of the department. I will note that when it comes to cases that involve national security, sometimes there is a balancing that has to be done, and I'm not talking about the TAM case specifically now, but sometimes there has to be a balancing that is done between what our national security interests are and what might be gained by prosecuting a particular individual. But I can say that with regard to this matter, the decision was made on the merits by career professionals without any notion of a double standard.
Then let me give you my judgment of it, and I'll end. It just seems simply that when somebody admits that they broke the law and something as closely related to national security as that program was, it just seems to me that it sends a very, very bad signal that leaking is okay and you aren't going to get prosecuted for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.